You know me, I've been around for many, many years, and I'm going to tell stories linked to brothers and sisters, the history of brothers and sisters. What's that? I've known Mary for over 40 years. Okay, now Brothers and Sisters was set up in 1978. It was set up, you remember that, don't you, Mary? Okay, but before that, I'm going to talk about the situation for deaf people. Now, my brother is gay as well as me being a lesbian. And I've got one straight sister, okay, and she was married, but we go off to places and we'd we'd go to these places and we would feel like there was a deaf community there, but it didn't really suit us. Myself and my brother, we felt a bit lost. He was gay, I'm a lesbian. We hadn't really come out. We were scared of what reactions we might get. Maybe they could be physical, they could be bullying. The community, the attitude wasn't as open as it is today. There was no real respect. So we were kind of lost thinking, what are we going to do? And my brother and I, we decided we go to a gay pub in London. And we went to one in Earl's Court because there was plenty of gay pubs around that area. It was kind of the gay centre at that time. They were all hearing people, but then we would see other deaf people. We'd go to a pub and we'd say, oh, there's a deaf person, there's another deaf person. We thought to ourselves, okay, we've seen a few deaf people. Let's get them all together. And we'd go out together and we'd have parties and we'd have different celebrations and we'd see new faces every time. And then we thought, oh, we went to the same school as you. Oh, we know this person. We've been to a deaf club, but we were all kind of closeted until we met with each other. Then we could talk about our experiences as deaf people. Now, there are deaf, lesbian and gay people. There was Tom and Ralph who came up to me and they said, why not? Was it Ralph, Tom and Ralph, or Jeff? Sorry, but they came up and said, why don't we set something up? And we thought about it and we thought, okay, we'll find a hall where we can all go. And then groups of us started going to this hall. We thought, yep, okay. And we booked this hall. And this hall was in Baker Street. And we went along and it was like a church hall. And there was no alcohol there. And, you know, we were all young. We liked a bit of drink. And so we thought, okay, then, all right, it'll be a good start. We'll start off in this place. And there was just a few of us, okay, going to this hall, just a few people. But we started, there was a new committee. And then my brother was there and he was in the committee. And then I was in the committee. And then there was other people. We looked at resources, different kinds of things like this. And we thought, what can the club be called? And we were all pondering about a name. And we thought, oh, actually, we're brothers and sisters. We're all brothers and sisters. We're the brother and sister on a committee. And that's how the name was born, from the brother and sister here. It was a temporary name, but it's actually carried on all the way for 43 years. We've been known as brothers and sisters. Okay, and we all agreed that would be the name. And we didn't stay in the church. We found actually a pub. We went upstairs. It was a Westminster Arms, the pub. And we went upstairs there. And it was near Big Ben. And we could go up in the pub. And it was in the centre of London. So that was really beautiful. It was really convenient for everybody. And it would open. We'd go upstairs. There'd be about 20 of us. And before you knew it, it had really expanded. People were coming and then we were like going to different venues and people would come, and it really, really grew in membership. And it was very, very important for us because it gave us a space. And also lots of people had experienced discrimination and bullying and lack of respect. Myself, I was beaten up twice. But anyway, so that's the reason we needed it. And people could be free. And it was very, very valuable for us all. We could share our experiences. We could enjoy ourselves. It was a really, really beautiful time right up till now. And to be open and out was very, very important for us. Mary, what do you think? Hi, everyone. Thank you, June. Thank you for that. I do remember when I arrived at Brothers and Sisters, at that time I was living in Ireland. And then I'd experienced a lot of bullying as well. And I just thought it was lucky that I had a brother, was that? Oh, right. So I was suggesting went to the Brothers and Sisters Club, and that's the sign we used to use. I remember it was a bad sign back then, but so I arrived in London and I was looking around, and the police, I asked where Brothers and Sisters were to the police because I didn't know where I was going. I was walking around for ages, and it was near Westminster. I knew that. Charing Cross. It was near Charing Cross, and I was walking around from the tube looking for it all over the place, a little bit lost. And I actually gave up, and I couldn't find it. But then somebody saw that I was deaf, and they said, "Oh, right, it's okay. Yeah, you can go along there." And then I went along to Brothers and Sisters, and then I met June Smith. And it was a really lovely introduction. And I remember June Smith there. Oh, my word. About 1987, I think it was. And up until now, I've known you. And then I decided to move as a deaf gay man. And I just felt very, very comfortable coming out and sharing my stories in Brothers and Sisters. And that started, I remember that. I remember at the Westminster Arms. And then it moved to different venues. I think back that time it was moving all over the place. But I do remember the first time. And it was the first Friday of every month, I think it was. And then it changed to a Saturday. I think it was because, I missed that. And then we got some money from GLA, just a small grant, a one-time grant. And then we went through that process up until now. And then we would go on marches, and there would be festivals, and we'd have Valentine's Day, we'd do Halloween, we'd do Christmas parties. We kept things rolling along. And when we'd have parties, the people from Europe would come. I remember there 2 German deaf people came to Brothers and Sisters, and we were like, "Wow, you've heard about Brothers and Sisters?" And they were like, "Yes, we have." We couldn't quite believe that the word had spread. And then they went back, and then we had the different anniversary parties, and we went to France, Germany. Oh no, people from France, Germany, and Holland came. And so the message spread all over Europe. But Brothers and Sisters, really, the first one was in London, and then there was Manchester. They had it in the Triangle area. They had one in Birmingham, and then they had the Welsh one in Cardiff, and Brighton. But it really spread all over Europe. I think there was about 8 set up all over the place. But Brothers and Sisters has definitely carried on. And, you know, we had the deaf flag as well. We had that. It was like 4 times a year we'd have that. And, oh, Andy. And we'd have the 5th anniversary party, all kinds of different times of anniversaries. We'd celebrate the 30th as well. And the change has been immense, especially with technology. And then we had the 50th anniversary party as well, or is it 50th or 50th? I can't remember. I didn't see that. But this is a photo of one of our parties, of our celebrations. That was the World Federation of the lesbian and gay deaf people from all around the world were coming to that. Lots of people, lesbian and gays, were coming to the UK and knew about us. It really was. I remember there was the BBC See Here. They came and filmed. They filmed the 21st Street. First drag show, do you remember that? We had drag their gear on and they filmed it, and that went out on the BBC. That was fantastic. That was a really good memory. There you go. I'm ready.
So yeah, then America set up their they had their events set up over there, and we did lots of networking within the countries. We saved money on hotels by going and staying with friends. Sometimes we'd go to hotels. It was really lovely. It was a real community feel to it. We'd have workshops. Back then, I do remember we set up workshops as well. We had some deaf awareness. I got the qualification myself from someone from Birmingham gave it, Deaf MESBA. And we had, there was some fact center.
Yep, that's it.
And that happened every Wednesday. That was confidential, where you could go confidentially if you could talk if you had HIV or you had AIDS or you had any concerns about it. And they offered free tea there. It was absolutely lovely. There was a gym within the building as well, just beautiful. And then the BDA asked if they'd move. And so we were very happy with it. The BDA's attitude seemed to change. They were very accepting of lesbian and gay people at the time. So we then moved and we started, or they started working together with them. It's one of the best I remember, the Deaf Awareness 1000 in Wales Centre, Wales City. We had the badge on, if you remember, and we had a speaker from the BDA came along talking about gays and lesbians and AIDS and HIV. It was just fantastic. I was there, we had international sign provided for any foreign deaf people coming along. It was a lovely full day event, really, really pleasant. June's going to move on, or we move over to June now. So yeah, so going back to Brothers and Sisters, back in 1978 was when we set up, and we were trying to work out how we could show people and raise awareness and understanding. There was theatre. My partner, Francis, was a coordinator or a chair of various deaf events. And we wanted to have shows at the theatre in Victoria. So we went along en masse to that. And we thoroughly enjoyed it. A large group of lesbian and gay deaf people went along. We were out, we were proud, and we thoroughly enjoyed it. Then Brothers and Sisters had their own mini theatre productions for maybe our 5th anniversary or our 10th anniversary, just as a group ourselves. And it was just so lovely that we could show off to ourselves and to others. Brothers and Sisters, we had committee members. What was that?
I don't know, sorry. Something, a secretary?
I was the chair, I was the secretary, I was the president, and now finally I am a patron for life of Brothers and Sisters Club. I didn't kind of in and out as along. I have throughout all of the years been fully involved within Brothers and Sisters, as you know, Francis was there supporting me, as Mary will attest. And I was always trying to be in contact with people. It wasn't simple. Like now it's very simple. You have Facebook, you can contact people, but back in those days, it wasn't. You had to write letters. It was a real challenging, every single role I had was always very, very challenging. And my partner, Francis, next year will be our 40th anniversary of being together. And here's a picture of us. Oh gosh, Mary saying, yes, I remember that. How lovely. And then we just enjoyed our life with Brothers and Sisters. We forgot about the other deaf clubs, and we just, on a monthly basis, we'd meet up together, Brothers and Sisters. The women's side of it began to grow, the lesbian side of things began to grow. We tried to oust the men if we could. There were more men come in than women, and we really struggled to know what to do. Should we have 2 separate organizations? So one deaf person set up Darlings, that was in King's Cross. And so lots of us went along to that. That then grew and grew in numbers as well. And that was specifically for women. They'd have meetings of various different types. There'd be different speakers come along. And I really missed Brothers and Sisters. But unfortunately, Darlings closed down because hearing people took over. It became less accessible for the deaf community, so that it kind of died out. So as a collective of lesbians, we then went back to the Brothers and Sisters Club. or we tried to find a women's club not far from here, actually, on King's Road in Chelsea. It's not around anymore, but it was near Gateway, and that was a sign that we'd use, Gateway. There was the Killers of Sister G in Sister George. The Killers of Sister George, that was filmed there. And it was only women in this place. It was just amazing. So very different to how it is now. Very, very butch. No one had any tattoos, all very, you know, I know young people now have tattoos all over them. It was very different back then. We really enjoyed going there. We really, really did enjoy going there. And that closed down. And again, we were all very disappointed. We tried different places. But the women's club seemed to face a demise. And now, from my experience, it's better to have, I don't know if men and women mixed or women's only are better. I'm not sure. Mary, what do you think? Gosh, yes, looking back, I remember Brothers and Sisters, the president, Jeff Queen, and David Moller, they were founder members of it, and it became very same. It was very gay orientated. And then eventually we had a growth in lesbians joining us, or we had lesbians became chairs. Do you remember at the time there was no kind of equality back then? So to have a lesbian in there, actually a lesbian as the member of the committee was, and you know, we were always very troublesome, and so we would have June there as a guy when she wanted to, you know, if you think she's been in the committee, she's done various roles within the committee. Well, actually, Mary, you've done more than me. You've done over 25. That's right, I have. Gosh, is it 40 years now? Yeah. When I look back, it feels like it's impossible. But I have the international sign skills, so I was able to work there. So it always fell down to me to offer the international sign for our international deaf friends. And then as time went by, it was a very positive experience for us. And I remember the words gays and lesbians were there, and for hearing people, it was very known as the pink label. And it then at that time, LGBT, the acronym, hadn't been formed. If you remember, in Camden Town, Camden Council at that point, there was an equality, I've lost it. There was a trip to France with the BDA, and we went as a group to there. Do you remember the problems that we had? There were no minicoms, no telephones, very, very terrible lack of access. In our house, we had flashing lights. Oh gosh, where was that? I can't remember, somewhere in West London. And every Wednesday we would get together and we'd start sewing a quilt together. We were upstairs, and it was very, very confidential. No one really knew what was happening there. But if the name was mentioned, then people would be directed up there. I was the first aider, so I was able to take care of people, and we had 32 deaf people died. We accepted one German person into the group. I was the first kind of foreign person, and then we accepted a German person into the group. I've got some photos and we'll share those with you later on. Oh, sorry, June, just a second. And yeah, the quilt, a hearing person said, oh, you really must show that off at Hyde Park. Every year, all hearing people kind of come together, and I think we had interpreters. We had maybe 4 interpreters. There was a huge long list of who was attending. And here's a picture, if I can. There's the picture of the quilt that we made. Oh, yes, yes. So they were all items of clothing that were cut together and sewed together, and it made up to be a quilt, and it was just wonderful. It was a lovely memory quilt that we made. And then Channel 4, gosh, back then, was it Brookside, the TV program Brookside, I think? There was a gentleman called Paul Abbott. He came across it and found out about it and wanted to get the information out. Now, at that time, remember, there were no subtitles. There was nothing was accessible. Information about AIDS was inaccessible as well. So things were set up for us. But it was a really wonderful time in my life. And June would like to add, forgot about another committee member. So we talked about, yeah, Jeff Queen and the others. But if you remember, we once went to it, we was asked if we'd go to a gay pride march, and it was the first time, I think in 1978, I think it was. Oh yeah, let's go along and have a little look at that. We didn't have any banners. We got a bit of cloth and we got our paintbrushes out. It was just, we didn't really have much at all because it was all very last minute. So we had our material, we painted it on. Unfortunately, that day it rained. So our beautiful banner that we made was absolutely ruined. It was terribly embarrassing, but we took as many photos of it as we could as a memento. But yeah, it rained all day. And that was our very first gay pride march that we attended. And there's the photo. Gosh, yeah, do you remember? Yes, yeah. And then after 5 years later and the 10-year anniversary, we then decided that we'd have a drag competition. So people came from far and wide. We had a drag competition, and Mary is in one of the photos that we've got, which we'll show. Let me find it. This photo just here. Oh gosh, and that's Mary there. Yep, that's me, look. Gosh, yeah, me in the pink dress. Yeah, that's right. That was a few years later. And this is a little bit, another photo a little bit later again. Oh, look at it. Yeah. Oh, deaf drag wasn't really a thing. You know, there were some, there was very little drag queens out there. I don't know. Oh, deaf drag seems to have disappeared now over the years. Maybe it's still out there and I just am unaware of it. Maybe you can share with me if you know that deaf drag still goes on. Thank you. Oh gosh, it's just so sad because so many people in this photo now are sadly dead. I was going to say yes, Mary's saying 32 from there have died. Yeah. So sad. But we've got some brothers and sisters videos and bears bits and pieces. We've got a collection of items. So if anybody ever wanted them from Deaf Rainbow UK or from Thrive, please do let us know, because I have a huge archive of videos and photos and paraphernalia. Brothers and Sisters is still active. We're a select group now. We're a slightly older, smaller group. The younger people are slightly more open with it. They, within the deaf community, is more accepting, more respectful. So they don't feel the need to come to Brothers and Sisters Club. And that's understandable that they're more than happy to mix within the community. But we have, such a wealth of experience, and it's so different for deaf young or young deaf gay and lesbian people now. I remember a time when we couldn't talk, when we couldn't express our feelings, and so we had to, it was expected that you would get married, that you would do the standard things, whereas now it's very, very different. And I shall pass over to Mary. All yours.
Sorry. There was GSV in all these different countries. There was London, there was Northern Ireland, and there was those different countries, Manchester, London, and Dublin, all of them. Oh yes, that was it, Dublin, I remember now. And they had their own GSV, and we would pick out different signs from that, and we should have filmed them really. One deaf person was so skilled at GSV, and they're in Ireland now. I think that was an Irish person. Who was it? You know who that could have been? It was me. Yes, it was me. Oh, it was you. Okay. And there was another person as well. Yeah, I think so. Actually, it was different people who had GSV skills. Absolutely. But I was one of them, Mary saying. But now it does seem to have gone. I have some research on that. Say, for example, like not the word straight, but you would say, like a women would say, like a hammer. Lesbians would do it like this in a much butcher way with a closed fist rather than the straight woman 2 fingers, which was very feminine. And motorbike, they would do motorbike like this, but the lesbians, we do it much more powerfully, like we were like taking that bike on a journey. So sorry. So straight women would be doing this kind of sign, but the lesbians would go, no, we would just butch it up. We would just butch it up to show the lesbian element in it. And the men would do the more feminine version of it as well. It was very interesting to see how that developed. I just want to add, like the lesbians, like they would follow the men's sign, and then the gay men would follow the women's sign. So it, like fab and mincing along and makeup and that kind of thing. There was lots of different signs. And we just felt comfortable as gay men getting that GSV. We felt comfortable with it and we'd sign with it. And back at that time in the old deaf club, they wouldn't accept it. They wouldn't accept it. And the BDA, they wouldn't accept GSV back at that time. And we campaigned for it. And I remember back in about 1990 in Brighton, there were so many people at a conference. We all went for this conference. And I remember being there and all of us were like, we kind of planned and we said we were going to say to the BDA, back at that time, I think the chair was a man. I can't remember. Was it Oh, I don't know that sign name of that person is, but I think back in the 1990s, and we arrived, and some people were in drag, and everybody was like, oh my God, it's not allowed, it's not allowed. And we were like, absolutely, we were who we were. We paid our membership and we have access. And they were saying, you know, we were thinking like deaf people should be in, it should be open to all kinds of deaf people. We have a right to be here, to party, like just like everybody else has. And we have that right to come in. There was arguments about this kind of attendance. So there was lots of arguments going on, but then they had to accept it. And Mike Hawthorne and myself, we were like real strong campaigners in this argument. And then the third, oh, there was the 100-year. Oh, I missed that. Now, deaf people, even though we feel comfortable with GSV, it does seem to have gone. It's changed, and now, you know, because of deaf clubs as well, they kind of accepted it. But deaf clubs have gone down, and so has GSV. And I miss GSV. I think it's a shame. I've just got one more thing I'd like to add. Just one thing I'd like to show you for the lesbians. Okay, this picture here. I've got something to add as well, actually. This picture. I can't see it. Hold it up. Hold it closer to the screen. Oh, yes. Everybody wearing white. It was a whole night of white. Do you remember the last Brothers and Sisters? There was the membership card. Do you remember the different membership cards we had? John Wilson, I think he found this one to show you here. Oh, bring it up closer to the screen, please. Oh, so John Wilson has researched all these different kinds of cards, membership cards for brothers and sisters. I remember Brothers and Sisters, in fact, there was no resources for printing or typing or writing and postage, anything like this. We didn't have anything. We couldn't afford stuff. And then we'd have to raise money by raffles, little bits of donations. We'd have to think of many inventive ways to get funding, letter writing, this kind of thing. We used to have lots and lots of different ways of using people's skills to raise money. I mean, I wasn't that brilliant at English. No, your language is fantastic. I would give it to other people to do it with their skills. Because John found something else and showed me this. If you can see here. Again, can you move it closer to the camera? Oh, yes. That was the third. That was, oh. That was some kind of walking and signing, some event. Remember with the BDA, Jeff, was that it? At that time, the chairperson, the president of the BDA, started welcoming gay people, and we all went, we were welcome. And then in the conference, and so we went along to that. Every year we were welcome. This particular president was saying, yes, you are welcome. And we thought that was so marvelous. But now that Brothers and Sisters seems to have changed. But I want to say thank you so much to Deaf Rainbow UK, because deaf, lesbian and gay people are coming back into the fold now, and I really value that. And hopefully we'll come back and we'll get, you know, we're welcoming transgender people now. At that time, transgender people, brothers and sisters, it wasn't really there. We were a bit late in doing that because we didn't really have those that awareness back then. We used to say sex change, or they've changed their sex. but you know, because we were taking it from hearing people, oh, it's a sex change, and we thought, oh, and then we carried on doing that. But now we know the proper terminology, and we've learned this, and the information and the education around these issues is of a much better quality. Yeah, you know, we've got LGBTQI and all these different letters, which I don't completely understand. Tyrone had to teach me all of this and polish me up on my terminology. Yeah, I do remember, actually. I remember when brothers and sisters, when we'd have parties and the information would go out there all over the UK. And then people would be told about these parties and they would come and we would like say, how did they would explain, they would ask, how did we set up? And I would explain everything. And there was people from France, all different countries, people from Sweden, people from Holland. They would all come all over the world and they would go back with this information, because back at that time, I just think there was 2 different countries really, but then they would go off and tell their own fellow country people, and then the information spread about how we set up. It was a good time. The deaf community was bad in the sense of discrimination, but I'm happy with the life we had. I'm happy with all those years that we did that, and now I'm happy that we're much more accepted and there's respect out there. Brothers and sisters, the first time they had a lesbian marriage, it was the first lesbian marriage. You remember? No. Oh, not sure myself on this bit. There was a marriage. There was a marriage within our lesbian and gay community. Now it's obviously marriage has been accepted, but we were part of the fight in the past to get it accepted, and we were in that. Now we couldn't adopt children back then either. The councils, they wouldn't. Gay and lesbian people back then, you weren't allowed to be gay at work. You'd be frightened at work to say. There was all kinds of barriers. If you came out, you couldn't. But now we've got much more equality, but we certainly didn't have it back there. I think it was a waste of my time back there, how much I suffered. However, but it wasn't really a waste. We had a good time. The struggle gave us some good parts. Now hand over to Manuela, okay? Because we seem to have gone on for quite a long time now. Oh, just looking to see Manuela, where Manuela may be. Just waiting for her video to come up. Oh, there's Manuela. Hey, Manuela. I'm just going to pin Manuela. Oh, you can't. Oh, there you go. Perfect. Oh, she's gone again. Oh. Ah, there she is. Okay, I hope I stay up here now. Okay, I've just got one more question that I would like to ask, because I'm just recording. I would just like to ask, you were talking about before 1978 how difficult life was, but you know, was it nerve-wracking to be hidden? How would you know? How would you know, for example, if another person was lesbian or gay? If you could just give us a little bit, I'm going to stop you, but it's just important information, but I will stop you if you go on. We just want to get this for the recording, okay? Like deaf people will go on a rally, for example, or a march, or maybe something that lots of people went, and then you'd be looking at each other, maybe doing a little bit of flirting, or, you know, a bit of eye contact, and then you go into the toilet, close the door. Maybe you'd be in the toilet and the door would open and people would be angry. I'm not quite sure. Yeah, but I was nervous. You were scared that your mother and father would say, my daughter shouldn't be a lesbian, you're gay. And it was, I was kind of fed up with this, but I was hiding. And then I would travel, but I was very, very nervous. I went to Oxford Deaf Club. There was a lot of people went to Oxford Deaf Club. I think it was some kind of sports event, and there was a party in the evening, and it was over 2 floors, and there was some gay lesbian people signing, and they were, and somebody poured drinks from the top floor all over us. Just a discriminatory act, poured all these drinks over us. They were all laughing, and we were just down there soaked from all these drinks. And then there was lots of attacks. And the committee said, right, get out. And they get out, June, get out. And we were all like, there was just a few of us and all of them attacking us. And then the police came. And we were covered. Sorry, can you say that again, Andy? Thank you. And then people would say, are you lesbian or gay? What for? And we go, we're the same, you know, why are you straight? We come back and we started getting our confidence up to say to them, you know, why are you asking if we're gay? Why are you straight? And they go, you want to be the same as a man? All these kind of ridiculous questions. And we really, lesbian and gay people would be involved in these scuffles all the time. And then it was bad. It was bad news. And then we just thought it's got to stop. It's dangerous. The society was dangerous and it had to stop. Yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, we were at Green Lanes Deaf Club the first time I was ever there. And I had a ball, a mask on. We were at a ball. I was dressed maybe a little bit quite femininely. And upon arrival, there were so many faces looking at us. There were a couple of deaf people that knew me well. And they asked, well, why are you here? What are you here for? I said, oh, I'm here for, you know, for access to BSL. And I was pushed in the throat. I was pushed from the front and I was kicked out. And that was the first time ever that I'd been thrown out of a deaf club. Thankfully, Green Lanes, there was a fire. And of course, now we're in a different building. But deaf people asked, would I come along? Would I do anything? I said, no, I don't want to, because I'm fearful for myself. I'm fearful for my life. That was, oh gosh, don't even know how many years ago. But thankfully to brothers and sisters, they were there. And that was a wonderful life where we could party, we could travel, we could be together with each other. And that was lovely. And over time, there was a change in attitudes, laws changed, and it was wonderful. Lots of deaf people were beaten up. We weren't the only ones, but on the streets, if someone was walking along effeminately, then they would be jumped upon. There weren't isolated cases. It was en masse. It was a regular occurrence for us. But your stories, and they bring us up to today. And I guess coming out it's still a struggle, but it is easier and it's better. But I understand that attitudes have changed, but it's still a constant fight for all of us.